Are we live?
Yeah, we're live.
Okay. Welcome everybody to another episode of Deep Space Nine at 9ish. This is season 2, episode 22. So we got the triple twos. The Wire. This episode is all about Garrick and Bashir, and I loved it. It's one of my favorite episodes we've watched so far. The season, the series in general, it just keeps getting better. They keep hitting home runs right now, I think. And that's my first thoughts. We'll bring in some guests here, though, so I'm guest host. We have my brother Dave Mater. We'll bring him in.
Hello.
Say hello. Yeah, okay. And we'll also bring in the tag team couple, Kevin and Ashley Millard. They're here as well to talk everything about Deep Space Nine at 9ish. We also have the image of Bashir and Dax looking at something that is... I'm not quite sure how to describe it other than a giant cone with spikes on it.
It's her plant. It was Dax's plant that she picked up on some planet somewhere.
Someone painted that thing.
But that's what's on screen when the title card comes on. So that's what our background is.
The Wire. Okay, so guys, I mean, highlights, Dave. What stood out of this episode for you? Do you feel like the show is like moving in a different direction here? Is it clear? Yeah.
Well, on your first question, Jeff, what stood out for me? I think that there's a line that the great Andrew Robinson delivers in his, maybe epic performance here, maybe his most defining role as Elim Garrick in this episode, where he says, "Patience has its rewards," and that could not ring more true than us here on D Space 9 at 9ish, who have endured some of these more mundane and mediocre Deep Space Nine episodes of season 1 and season 2 to get to the goods. Because Jeff, I think that this is a very significant Star Trek episode in general, not just a Deep Space Nine episode, because like the subject matter is that amazing. It's the performance. It is Andrew Robinson, as I've already mentioned, who is amazing in this what he does with this script and what the writers did, and even though he never becomes main cast officially, it feels like he does from this point on. So a big thing there. And what was your second question?
No, that's good. We'll move over to Kevin and Ashley. Kevin, Ashley, what about Garrick did you learn or not learn in this episode? Like, I have a few conspiracy theories here about what was going on in this episode. Okay, so Garrick, he's talking about this whole story. I feel like he tells the story about 3 times in this episode about his friend Elim, who he changes his story a few times too. So you're trying to like muddle through the truth. And then you get to the end, and then you find out the actual truth. But what did you guys make of that whole mystery? Is that kind of what makes this episode intriguing?
I don't know if it's what makes the episode intriguing exactly. I think because I didn't see this episode until after I was familiar with Garrick, because I wasn't watching the early seasons when they aired. I kind of joined the show. I was on the Worf bandwagon in season 4. So I became familiar with Garrick later when he's already kind of established, and I didn't go back and watch this episode till later. So I don't know how this would have played for me first time run. Maybe Ashley might have a better perspective on that, but it's not what stood out for me in this whole mystery and this whole like misdirect in Garrick's background. And it's kind of like the whole premise of the episode where he's like, "What is true, Garrick? What can I get to the truth about you?" He's like, "It's all true, Doctor." We get the elaboration, especially the lies. Even the lies, especially the lies, and how he's this kind of delicious, interesting, dynamic character among a whole bunch of already interesting characters. Andrew Robinson is putting Avery Brooks and other cast members here to shame in what he does here. Even I think as good as Alexander Siddig is in the episode, he's barely keeping up.
I disagree with that. I don't think the episode works without Alexander Siddig's performance. I
It's
feel like
good. It's just not at the same greatness.
I don't. Well, no, but he doesn't have. I feel okay. It is much more difficult sometimes to play the straight man to the guy that's doing all the crazy stuff. You know, like it is in some ways like if you look at like a Batman and a Joker, it's hard to play the Batman. You know,
Right.
and make it believable and make it work. And in this episode, Bashir, maybe that'll be our the question we'll get over to Kevin and Ashley. How do you guys feel about Bashir in this episode? Did you feel like his performance was good?
Yeah, I liked Bashir in this episode.
Probably the only one.
No, I like Bashir.
Yeah, he's good in this episode. He's strong in this episode. He doesn't back down from Garrick. You can tell he considers him a friend. Or
Yeah.
Odo, yeah.
Yeah,
I he has one of the best lines in the episode, which is when Garrick asks him, "Has anybody ever told you you're an insufferable pest?" And he says, "Chief O'Brien all the time," and I ignore him too.
yeah, no, he has a bunch of good lines actually in this episode. And
Yeah.
I feel like this is the first episode in which they really paint Bashir in a great light. They really show that his empathetic side, the fact that he will stand up to people like Odo. We don't get Cisco in this episode, but I feel like he would have stood up to anybody to make sure Garrick was okay. And then and just some of the scenes in this episode really just are breathtaking. I think from a performance standpoint, from both Andrew Robinson and Alexander Siddig. For me,
They play off
they
each other
do, and I
really
think they
well.
knew they did, and I think they like we have talked about before with Odo and Cork, how much they love doing like the that dynamic. I think they're starting to go, okay, we can use Bashir in with other characters here, and make it a medical thing, and then really give him some meat to chew on, and he really deserves it because I do feel we talked about this before, but I do feel like Bashir is the one crew like main cast member that is like the outsider compared to the rest of the crew. I feel like Dave said like he chose this. Well, there he goes. But he chose this role. Like Cisco didn't pick him. So and it's taken a
Yeah.
little while to get used to him. But I think he's worked. I think he's starting to really work. And some of my favorite episodes are Bashir centric, and I feel like this episode is like a Bashir episode, right? Like, and it's a Garrick episode, but it's really Bashir's episode in a lot of ways.
It's both of them, and they really work together. I think they have a great chemistry together, the two of them. But I was kind of sad in the later seasons is they don't play on that as much. They both kind of go off on their own story arcs, and we don't see them at the table because some of those lunches are my favorite scenes. Just the two of them talking.
The cold open, and it's just
Yeah,
the two of them. Yeah, they give Bashir O'Brien and kind of back away from the Garrick relationship.
For sure, because Garrick kind of needs to be this mysterious character. But I kind of want to get back to this question, Dave, and you had your hand up earlier, and I think you want to talk about this. When he's telling the story about Elam, and he was the one that let the Bajoran shuttlecraft go, but he also told the story that he blew up that shuttlecraft, but that it was Elam, and then he keeps switching his story like back and forth all throughout the whole story, the whole episode. And Bashir is kind of just always like listening to him, but he's always kind of just saying to him, whatever you did, that you don't deserve to die, like all these kind of things. You shouldn't kill yourself, right? What is the truth? What actually happened? How did Garrick actually end up on the station? What is the real story, Dave?
I'm not quite sure if we'll ever really know, but I suspect that there are pieces of truth in each version he tells. Obviously, we know that he refers to him and Elam as two different people. We learn in this episode that they're one and the same. So he's kind of telling different accounts. it's very much like in Christopher Nolan's film The Dark Knight, with his version of the Joker kind of giving different account
Right.
origin. Maybe he lifted this from this episode. Who's to say? But it's
Oh, you know what? I also thought, I already made the analogy earlier about Batman and Joker, but I also thought about that movie with this episode.
yeah, maybe he just likes his origins to be multiple choice, as the Joker would say. It's kind of it's interesting. It gives to this mystery. It shows the torture, I think, too, and I think he gets to express all why he's this tortured soul, and that he perhaps has this glimmer of redemption to him too, which we'll come to find that he does. That he has sort of a moral code, and he'll become one of the main key allies of this crew.
I mean, but he does have this moment, Dave, where he's off the chip, right? Like Bashir turns it off, and immediately he's like throwing furniture, and he's like, "My life sucks. You suck. I hate you. I hate this place." And he's just like going ape shit. And I feel like that, like in some ways, that was like everything he was bottling up. The chip was bottling up, like all came out at once, and like whether or not that's how he he needed to go through this in order to come to the realization of what he did, which was a good thing, but he was regretting that he did a good thing. He was like a whistleblower that regretted whistleblowing because it costed him this great position as the second in command to the Obsidian Order, right?
Go ahead.
I don't even think it's just costing him his position. He misses Cardassia, and you see that come out later in the series where he'll start to kind of do anything to get back to Cardassia.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Garrick never does anything out of self-interest. It's always for Cardassia.
Right. That's how the episode starts, with that great little story that he tell, Bashir's like, well, this is the most repetitive nonsense that the same generation after generation just lives and dies for the state, and it's just pointless. And he's like, that's the point,
that's the whole idea.
That's the whole idea.
It gives you a good sense of who the Cardassians are. Like, I think that things I really love about this episode is that we get so many Bajoran episodes, but we don't always get a great sense of who the Cardassians are culturally speaking. We get a fair amount because it's Deep Space Nine and they are prominent on the show, but not in the same way the Bajorans do, and who they are, what they believe in, why they are the way they are, how they came to be this way, and what is there any sort of things you can take from their culture, any kind of value at all. That's kind of like the whole point of Star Trek, right?
Well, Odo makes the point in this episode, Dave, that the Obsidian Order is way more advanced than the Tal Shiar. So there is some sort of or they're very organized. They're the most efficient, organized. They're like a machine of a people.
Right. And the whole thing about I think this is the introduction of the Obsidian Order by name, at least. And I think, that obviously is this great, like, interesting world building dynamic of the Cardassians and how they work. And we know tons about how the Cardassians work, sometimes even more than other species like that we're very familiar with, even the Vulcans. So it's there's a lot to be said about this, about creating this myth and bringing in Paul Dooley as a Nabrantane, who will become a great recurring character here, and adding more to this legend of Garrick. You can already kind of, just from watching tonight this episode, get a sense of what Garrick and a Nabrantane were probably up to, in their day, what the misdeeds they likely committed together. He's
part of what I love about these early episodes with Garrick, though, is I love the denial of what he is in these early. I find it so entertaining that he does all this stuff, and then he's like, "Oh, come on, you'd be surprised what you can learn as a tailor," and like he's always denying that he's a spy, but everybody knows it.
Yeah, and then he admits it, and then he still denies it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he says in one episode, lying is like any other skill. You have to practice to.
If you want to be good at it, you got to practice every day.
Maintain a level of excellence.
Yeah, and there's a bunch of episodes later with Garrick where he has to lie to get them through situations, and it's really entertaining because he's a great actor, and he's really great at commanding a certain excitable energy. Like certain actors and certain characters have that, where you just like go, oh, I can't wait to hear what he has to say. Like kind of like Robert Downey Jr. does with Iron Man. You know, he just comes out with that quick quip, and you're like, oh, that was so good, or you know, so well written. And Garrick's probably one of the best written dialogue characters on the show by far, I would say, right? Like, I mean, it's him, and Cisco's good, but like for me, like just the way they write him,
Garrick
he's a pleasure.
Consistently excellently written.
Yeah,
and I think it helps that he knows his character so well.
Right. And that's that's part of Bashir too doesn't. You know, he doesn't really know what he's doing here yet. And he's learning on the fly, kind of like Terry Farrell is with Dax. You know, I feel like even though Alexander Sadegh, I think, was like probably a theater actor in England before he ever came to Star Trek, right?
Yeah, he's like classically trained, Royal Shakespeare, all that kind of stuff.
But it still took time for him to figure out his character. Kind of like I feel like the same with Picard too. Like it took him a while to figure out who Jean-Luc Picard was.
But Jeff, Andrew Robinson's had way less time on screen with this character, way less like development time than all the rest of them.
Yep.
Up into this point,
some people are just better at stuff.
Yeah, he's better. That's what I'm saying. Like in tonight's episode, I think he raised the bar on this show, and I think they all had to kind of catch up to him after this one. Like even though he's not officially on this main cast.
I think you're right, because it's mostly his performance and Alexander Sadegh. It's the two of them, because the story is actually kind of boring and weak. Mm-hmm. Not much happens, really.
Right.
It's character building, which I like. I like the character building episodes, and I like this episode, but generally it's not much happens, right? If for someone who's into the story, into the plot, it's not that great.
There's not much action. There's not much excitement. No. It's basically a medical mystery procedural show, almost like where the biggest thing that happens is that Bashir by himself takes a runabout to the Cardassian border and flies into, this, the hostile space, basically.
It's basically just, I lost my train of thought. No, it's not coming back. Somebody else go.
Well, just that, you're right. That the episode's not a very busy, memorable. Like, remember when that happened? It's mostly like if you are a fan of acting, then I think that this episode is a big standout because the writing's good too. But it's Robert Hewitt Wolf. He's an okay Star Trek writer, but like that's what exceptional actors do. That's what like a Patrick Stewart is capable of, right? And I think. Up until like what has Avery Brooks really done before? We saw like the Maquis two-parter last week. He's okay in it. It's more actually probably Nana Visitor who's really good in that Maquis two-parter than anything, and it's really more about Cisco. But I think that this tops that two-parter easily.
Easily.
Yeah.
And I agree. But that doesn't mean that. There are performances that Avery Brooks gives later that are
later. But like, what has he really done before? Up until we're almost at the end of season 2. So in the first 2 years of the show, his heart is not seemingly in this. No. He's barely in this episode. He shows up just to say he needed a hypo spray from Bashir because he was too busy yelling at admirals. That was like his minute, his quick minute in this episode. Because I think he came off a 2-parter.
I think when the show, like you said, Dave, kind of went more into Ira Stephen Bear's hands and less in Michael Pillar and Rick Berman or whatever, I feel like that's when Avery Brooks got more into it. Whereas Garrick already had a character that was already super interesting. and he had a lot of meat to chew on, and he probably created a lot of the backstory for Garrick on his own and then brought it to the writers, because that's the type of actor I would imagine Andrew Robinson is. He's like,
well, and I'm sure he did. He's written a book about
Right.
Garrick's history and past. So,
because really what this episode is supposed to be about is addiction. It's supposed to be about, somebody who's going through withdrawal and how being there for somebody. And it's supposed to be a showpiece on that. And it still is. But all these years later, how it kind of reflects in the whole story of Garrick in this show, it's more than that to me.
It's definitely a story about addiction, but it's also a story about somebody that gave up their life at the top of power and fell into that. That's why he's in that addiction, right? And it's also about the Obsidian Order and like where he came from, why he is where he is, and does he regret that decision? Does he or is he proud of that decision? And those two things are to me very important, because he does he come to, do you think at the end of the episode where Garrick is like, no, what I did was right, to get me exiled? Does he say that? I don't think he does. Right. So I feel like he does feel the way he did when he was first off the chip, where I think he really had a lot of feelings that he hated his life. He hated he was there. He's going to kill himself. Right. And then, but I think he needed a Bashir to kind of keep him alive, to get him through that dark period, I think, to come to terms with what he did. I still think he, like you guys say, he's a Cardassian, like loyalist to the state to the death. And he did something that was like, it'd be like being like a Nazi Gestapo and then saving a Jew, and then and then getting exiled, and then you're like, okay, and then regretting that decision. That's to me kind of what it's like. And Garrick is, you want to like him, but then you're like, that's messed up. Don't you guys think? Don't you think that's kind of?
Well, that's the whole point.
He's a complex character.
It's same with Gul Dukat, because remember, like, Gul Dukat was more popular in the era the show was on than Garrick was. And we saw Gul Dukat doing some pretty nefarious stuff in last week's two-parter, where he's like, kill them, destroy them, you never let your prisoners die and whatever. And so we get Garrick, who's not a soldier, he's a spy, and sort of what that sort of and he's part of this secret police group that's kind of brought in. But
the spy agency, Dave, is more powerful than the Central Command. And that is really what was to me interesting about Garrick, is that he was almost more powerful than Gul Dukat.
Yeah, we'll find out that like Garrick and Nabran Tain had Gul Dukat's father killed for suspicion of betrayal to the state. So they had a lot of power, and the military and the Obsidian Order do not like each other per se.
I also had a lot of like I kept thinking about Snowden and like his story, and I while I was watching this episode, because to me, I just kept thinking about like how he was kind of not a whistleblower, but he was like, he basically betrayed his state, because of something he believed was right.
For its own good.
And he again, does he regret that? Like Arizona doesn't, but whether or not Garrick does is a legitimate question, and I'm glad that they address it the way they do, because it is who his character is, right?
Yeah.
Dave, is there anything in this episode, like from some of the tertiary characters, that you liked, like with Odo or Cisco or Dax? Because they really don't do much.
They're not much in this episode. One thing that stood out to me was in the beginning of the episode where Garrick and Bashir are having their initial conversation about the book, The Never-Ending Sacrifice, the repetitive epic, which is the classic form of Cardassian literature, which then evolves into sort of this conversation when Bashir realizes Garrick's not well, is obviously in distress, and then kind of argues with him and walks off. Kira comes out of nowhere and goes, "What was that about?" And I'm like, why do you care, Kira? Like, you barely talk to Bashir, and you
care.
And you care about what Garrick's at a sniff, like.
There's another part where Bashir is like humming and sighing, and Dax is like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "O'Brien, stand you up again," or something like that. And he goes, "No, it's Garrick." You know, it's like they're having like a whole moment. I loved it.
Like I think I mentioned Paul Dooley as an Albertine is really good, and I also think that this guy who was like this guest Cardassian who was talking to Quark about the they like what's this medical technology when Garrick was trying to kind of buy some replacement on the black market for his implant, the wire, the title of the episode, and he gets him like busted or whatever. You know, he runs his career. But I listen, he's like, how's your Davo girl? She bankrupted me. Like this whole conversation I thought was fun. He was more memorable than anything Dax or O'Brien or Cisco did, or even Kira. Well, Kira, I think most because she just stood out as like, it seems like you could have given that line to like Dax instead, but instead they gave her the weird plant instead with the spikes on it. You know, I think that actually you didn't need all those little cameos, really. You could have probably given a little more time to the story. This was a good chance for Bashir to really be a doctor, like to really like, I'm going to save you no matter what. He hadn't really had that yet, like up until this point. He hasn't had a really strong I'm a doctor episode. And it's all up to me, him versus the world. So he will go on to have those, but
there's been a few like where the one where there was the virus and there's been a few medical problems that he's had to solve.
A couple things, but nothing really like I haven't felt like he's faced a lot of adversity up until this point, directly at him. And I think this is maybe one of his bigger challenges. He's had to kind of go,
what about Alan Moraine?
Right.
Not Alan Moraine.
When he was screaming and
I think we're meant to do something.
Yeah, you think we're supposed to do something? Thanks, brilliant.
Yeah, like he's because I don't think the actors have thrown themselves, the cast has fully thrown themselves into this show, into this part. I think that they think they're going to get canceled every other day. They talk about this in retrospect, how they did, even when they were kind of into it and when Voyager came along, they were always in this middle child role, if you will.
Well, what did the actors do though, Dave? Did they sign like at first like a 2-year deal? And then do they do a 5 and then they extend it for a 5-year deal?
They all signed 6-year deals. That's why
when
they signed onto the show. So that's why
in the first season, they all signed on to 6 seasons.
Yeah, when they signed onto the show, they signed on to do 6 years.
And they thought it was gonna get canceled?
Yeah, but they can still cancel it. Like it's not like they have to do 6 years. But
right. So like when they signed Enterprise, was it probably for 6 seasons at first?
Probably, yeah, because that was what that was the model at that time, was to get to about 7 seasons. That's your syndication run, and then you can you'll make enough. That's the business model, because it wasn't a network show; it was a first run syndication. So they had to get a sort of you want to get past that 100 episode count. That was kind of like what you really wanted more than anything. That's why Enterprise. I don't think did, or maybe just barely did. I don't
almost 98 episodes or something like that.
So they're just shy of what was sort of like the bare where they wanted to get to.
All you do is add a few clip shows in there, and you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, and the other one, I guess, that stood out a little bit with Odo. He's in the episode a bit, like kind of giving information. He's the most useful of like the rest of the crew that kind of pops in here, other than maybe Bashir's nurse or doctor. I'm not sure who.
But his role is very mechanical. I don't find him interesting in this episode.
Okay, we're
memorable.
We haven't talked about one character that is actually a series regular that's in this episode. Actually, more than we have talked about is Quark. Quark is in this episode quite a bit, and he's making shady deals with Garrick. He's talking to a Cardassian control guy. I think that was that the picture you showed, Dave. Was it that guy? Right, yeah. And he's the guy that puts punches in the security code that I'm guessing Garrick gave Quark to give this guy, and then. Yeah,
I wish we had seen this guy. I'm gonna bring him back because I just thought he was fun. I was like, "This is a great Cardassian. Bring this guy back."
They should have had him in the final scene with Paul Dooley or whatever. They should have just had him getting executed while Bashir walked in or something. Like
that would have been interesting. Yeah, you could have cut out like the Kira and O'Brien moments and done that. That would have been fine.
I liked the Bashir and Nabrantane scene as well. Like the whole thing where he shows up and he's like, "I've alerted them. Yes, I know your name. Do you want some Tocalian tea? Do you
Yeah.
Right.
I like that character and their repartee.
Okay,
really
guys,
good.
Kevin and Ashley. He says, what is Julian Bashir's middle name? He says it in this episode. He says Julian blank Bashir.
Oh, I meant to remember that too. I thought it would be part of fun fact.
Do you know?
It's like Subatoy or something.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
got it. Subatoy.
Yeah, and I don't really know the origin. That's something you'll have to hit on. Fun facts for Jeff, but Jeff, I kind of looked ahead to fun facts, and there may be a Babylon 5 fact in there, so I want to make sure that's mentioned. So, but Paul,
why does Babylon 5 come up every Deep Space Nine at 9ish?
Because they were made at the same time and they're both set on space station.
If you want to do Babylon 5 at 5ish, you're welcome to do it.
Something tells me you'll be all by yourself.
I don't have anyone to do that podcast with. So. But okay, well, yeah, Paul Dooley. Is he from Deliverance? Is that where I know him from, or where do I know Paul Dooley from? He's in.
I don't know.
Come on, wasn't he on Roseanne? Was he like Dan Connor's father or something?
He's
like
known
that?
for
Oh yeah,
Popeye. He was in 16 Candles.
Yes, he was.
He was in Hairspray.
He's in 16 Candles. It's Jim Baker. I don't know. He's still alive. He's
Strange Brew.
Yeah. Great actor.
Great
actor, Paul Dooley. And great that they brought him in for this part. I think that they were smart because they don't. How many Garrick appearances do we have before this? 2?
Yeah, not many.
Yeah, 2, I think.
2 probably. And so they're like, okay, guess what, Andrew Robinson, we loved you, because he's barely in season 1. He's kind of make a cameo in that 3rd episode, and then he's in this season earlier, helping with the war orphans and all that kind of stuff and that mystery. And then we see here that we're gonna introduce this Nabrantane character. We're gonna bring in this Obsidian Order backstory. So they're giving a lot to this character. Like, they're like, we're gonna introduce all these interesting, great things. I think we didn't get enough out of the Nabrantane character. I think they could have, I think really we're going to get 2 appearances after this with him, but his legend is almost more important or more significant because of what it represents.
I think this episode might be you're right, Jeff. I think you said this earlier, is the reason that that Garrick becomes a bigger character. He really nails this episode, and like Andrew Robinson does. And I think then they start writing. They're like, oh, this character's interesting. Let's keep writing more and more for this.
I feel like this episode they had a bunch of saved up dialogue to put with Garrick. And I feel like because they were wanting to do an episode with him for a while, and I think that he just kept getting pushed off. And by the time they went to do his episode, it was just so much great dialogue that they probably had saved up for him, and they crammed it all into one episode. And it's great. It is fantastic. But I do feel like that's why like nothing happens, and like that's why it is a box episode in that way.
A bottle episode,
but same thing. Okay, so. Anything else, guys, on this episode? Is anything standing out that you guys liked that you guys want to talk about?
Well, I mentioned that we gotta get to that Babylon 5 thing. Let's see what else.
Oh, we don't have to get to that.
Yeah, nobody's forcing you. It's fine.
Well, I think I've said everything like that's big in this. I think that, why this episode stands out, why I think it's really a turning point for the show. I feel like it's we had Duet in season 1. That still stands out to me as one of the great Deep Space Nine episodes. I think certainly the best episode of season 1. And this may prove to be the best episode of season 2.
I would say it goes to show that the Cardassians are probably the best part of DS9. I mean, they really,
they're villainly, but also but what do these 2 episodes have in common? Like, what is that an Eamon Maritza character and Garrick have in common? They're sort of like these
and Gold Dukat. You got
And Golden Cot, like these people who are on these sort of redemption arcs, sort of because they have.
No, Golden Cot is that Maritza and Garrick both love Cardassia.
Mhm.
Gul Dukat loves himself.
True.
He's not all about Cardassia, and he says he is. He is when it suits him, but he's really always out for himself.
the only thing Goldacott ever shows that he loves is his daughter. It's the only thing that he ever in the whole show, really, other than himself.
And so, what is the point there? What do we take from like Amy Maritza and Elam Garrick? That they love the state, but that when that conflicts with sort of their conscience and their morality, that's what they're tortured by, and they're sort of ashamed by that because that's not how a Cardassian would be, and which is reinforced by all this speak to their literature, which is all about the state. It's all at all costs. It's all about protecting the state.
I think that Garrick is still protecting the state.
I think Maritza thought he was still protecting his state. I think he thought the Cardassia had to answer for its crimes in order to sort of move on and actually have a future.
Right. And Goldacott also tries to justify most of what he did because of orders and what the state was telling him to do and what was good for Cardassia and all these different things. Right. So they all have this. That's Bajorans don't really, don't feel they're proud to be Bajorans, but they're not. They're more diverse. They're more and they're more democratic. They have a lot more different factions. Whereas Cardassians are all united. They're like Republicans. They're no matter who's the leader, everybody make sure you toe the party line, and that's what Cardassians are like.
Not Quark's girlfriend there that was around a while back.
Yeah, and there's always going to be outliers, and but yeah, I just think that those characters work on DS9 so well. I don't really feel like they did on TNG. I don't feel like there is a great Cardassian episode, is there?
Well, there's the Four Lights.
The Four Lights.
The Four Lights, and I think also The Wounded is a great. It doesn't feature them heavily, but they're in it. The Cardassians. Right. It's their introduction, I think, isn't it? The one where O'Brien's singing with the captain on in the ready room.
Right. Okay. So they did a couple of good ones. Yeah. And I just think, those characters, there's so many great themes that they get to delve into with them. Okay. So are we good? Are we going to move on over to fun facts?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right. Move over to fun facts. Fun facts with Jeff, everybody. Here again on DS9 at 9ish with another FF with Jay.
I don't know if we should be laughing and encouraging that.
I don't know. Maybe it's a thinker. It's a thinker.
It's an FF with J. This also marks the first Obsidian guys of the Obsidian Order, which was going to be the Gray Order.
Yes.
Until the producers learned that the similar space station serial Babylon 5 planned to introduce a group called the Gray Council, and felt the names were too similar.
Actually, Obsidian Order is a cooler sounding name.
Yeah, way cooler. They picked.
Then the Gray Order, if they had been called the Gray Order, like that would have been blah. The Obsidian.
Nobody's part of the Gray Order. No. Might as well be the Big Order.
Isn't Obsidian's like a rock, right, or a mineral,
or a volcanic glass?
Volcanic glass. Yeah. So
I actually have a piece right here. It's just
right. So perfect. Yeah. Okay. So this was. Yes.
This is how I know I'm an Obsidian Order member. Actually.
Okay. Do you have a chip in your head?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a chip in your head?
No.
That allows you only to feel good thought. Okay.
Data chip?
Yeah. This was originally intended to be a non-maintained sole appearance, but much like the situation with Garrick, both the fans and producers liked Tane so much they decided to bring him back.
Well, why bring him in for like Paul Dooley, who's a pretty notable actor, just to do this? Like one time. It was maybe if that's truly they only intended once, I think they must have had it in the back of their head that they were going to do it again.
It left the back door that they could bring him back, and that was an easy situation.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first DS9 episode to be directed by a woman, guys. Kim Friedman. The producers were so impressed with her work that they brought back her to direct several crucial episodes. Girl power.
She did a great job with this episode. I think that's one of the reasons this episode is so good.
Yeah.
She did a fantastic job of building the drama in this episode, like building up to this.
Yeah, when I'm comparing your direction to Christopher Nolan, I think there's something there. Way before Christopher Nolan ever did it.
Well, yeah, like think about it here. We got like last week we had Avery Brooks as Cisco, and then we had the other guy, Cal Hudson, who are supposed to have like this deep-seated, strong relationship,
Right?
And here we have Garrick and Bashir, who barely know each other, really, but they form a much stronger connection and a lot less screen time in this episode.
Yeah, because I feel like yes, maybe Avery Brooks was phoning it in season 1 and 2, but the Cal guy sucked. I mean, he just sucked. He was just like a D actor, A lot
of times that comes down to the direction.
Yeah.
If the director is not pulling that performance out of them,
I think typically too. I don't know if it was Kim Friedman.
Crappy things.
Yeah.
I think Kim Friedman, if it was her, that would go on to have major conflict with Avery Brooks, because Avery Brooks is not the easiest guy to work with.
And he's barely in this episode. He walks in and because he heard his vocal cords or something, right? Because he was yelling, and he goes, "You have to stop yelling." He's like, "I wasn't yelling. I was voicing my disapproval loudly."
Loudly.
Which is believable, for sure. That's true to the character.
Yes.
Robert Hewitt Wolf's original idea for this episode, Dave, was to have Kira addicted to battle stimulants ever since her days in the Bajoran Resistance. But that idea was rejected because it would be difficult to do subsequent episodes with Kira without referencing the addiction, and it was felt it could tarnish her character too much.
That's interesting, because I guess there was more of a stigma around addiction and everything in this time period. And it's kind of, when you say that, I kind of go, yeah, we have kind of changed our attitudes towards this kind of thing. Where we were more comfortable giving that kind of role to Garrick, who's not a main cast member, not a hero per se. That's a good point.
You got to remember, in the 90s, addiction wasn't a medical issue. It was a moral failing. Right. This is what people thought. It was, you were weak. It was, you were wrong. You deserved to be in jail. It was not what it is today. It's definitely different times.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, guys, we need to talk all about Kanar. Okay, so this is the first appearance of Kanar. But they've said it before. They have showed it, but they never showed it up close. This is the first time they show it. It's light blue in this episode.
So there's definitely different types of Kanar. However, it's not the first time we'll see it, Jeff, because we've
seen it before.
We saw even last episode where when Ducat gets back to the station, he's eating his big meal. He's pouring himself a drink that's the same. It looks to be Kanar, because we'll see that Leggett Damar will go on to drink that quite a bit. But this Kanar is like light blue and like more like water, or more like what we would consider a spirit. So there's definitely different consistencies.
Yeah, so there's
sure, but how come they don't have to specify? How does everybody just know what type of Kanar they want when they say Kanar?
That's true.
Personal preference.
They never specify.
Well, the series shows 3 varieties of Kanar. There's a blue, a cloudy yellow, and then later on there's a lot more common one. There's a brown version.
Yeah, that's the one Damar will drink.
It's all syrup.
The dark brown variety shares a very strong resemblance to another Cardassian food item you all know and love. Yamek sauce.
Self-sealing stem bolts. I mean, yamek sauce.
Which resembles a thick soy sauce, so molasses.
That's right, Jeff. I am pulling up a picture of Kanar, but it's going to take me a minute.
Okay, so when Tane first meets Bashir, he calls the doctor Julian Subatoy Bashir. Okay, but where does that name come from? It happens to be Subutoy was the right-hand man of none other than Genghis Khan.
Oh,
No, that's an interesting choice. Okay. Here's the Kanar. The 4 types of Kanar shown. The blue one, second from the left, is the one we see tonight.
Yeah, there's the cloudy yellow one, and then there's the brown one, which is in the dark one there. Yeah.
But usually with the spiral bottle.
Yeah.
yeah.
Which looks pretty cool. I mean, they definitely look futuristic. Glen Bohica is likely named from the acronym BOHICA, often used in military and pronounced the same way. It stands for "Bend Over, Here It Comes Again," and is used colloquially by regular soldiers to refer to impending trouble or reprimand, usually from one's own command. Due to character circumstances in the story, his name seems more than apt.
I was like, Bohica, where did they come up with that name? I was wondering that to myself here.
So that's hilarious.
Bend over, here it comes again.
The guy that blatantly falls for a Ferengi trap.
He's coming back on screen. I didn't expect to bring him back tonight, but there he is. Bend over, here it comes again.
His name Glenn. Bend over, here it comes again. And he literally takes it up the ass in this episode.
Well, yeah, we don't know what his ultimate fate was, but he was played by Jimmy Skaggs in this episode.
Jimmy Skaggs plays him. Nice.
Jimmy Skaggs.
Okay. Continuing the tradition of Dr. McCoy from Star Trek, the original series, guys. I don't know if you guys caught this, but I did as well. Bashir said, because McCoy always says, "I'm a doctor, not a whatever." Dr. Bashir tells Dax, "I'm a doctor, not a botanist." Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right. And the one time they need Keiko, she's not there.
Yeah, I know. That was hilarious.
Oh, they didn't really need Keiko.
I think
they did. It was like one time they have a sick plant. She's not.
They're like, Keiko would be proud.
Well, I wrote this scene where we have a sick plant. Can we get Rosalind Chow? No. Well, then write something else. Like
originally, Kira, it was going to be a Kira episode, and we were going to set it on Bajor, but that all changed.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God.
Okay. This is the first time that Cardassia Prime is mentioned, and the first time that the Cardassian homeworld is actually named.
Really?
Yep.
Huh.
A lot of firsts. Yeah. It feels like these first 2 seasons were like the pilot. I feel like this was the Discovery model.
This is what Star Trek did, though. Like you like TNG, same thing. The first 2 seasons are like just like the breaking it in.
Well, then, like, how can we be critical of Discovery if
because
really
they
the same thing?
Because it's not the same thing. Because they're not making the same kind of show.
They're not making the same kind of show in the sense it's like a 22 episode first run syndication, but it's
nothing about the new Star Trek, Dave, feels like this Star Trek. It feels like fucking Stargate. Like
but that era of Star Trek didn't feel like original series Star Trek.
No, but there are certain things that are constant that I don't feel like are constant on Discovery.
Well, check out our deep dive on season 3 Thursday, where Kevin Millard will be giving his opinion on all of season 3. He's binge watching it.
Gotcha.
I am.
Okay, a subplot scripted but not filmed would have revealed that Benjamin Sisko served at the Federation Embassy on Romulus early in his career, where he befriended a Romulan member of the kitchen staff named Stolpan, who was arrested by the Tal Shiar by political improprieties. Sisko was prepared to go to the Tal Shiar headquarters and convince them to set him free. However, Sisko was eventually persuaded by Curzon Dax not to go.
That was going to be in this episode?
Yeah, they cut it. Oh, good.
Yeah. They cut that.
Okay. All right. So Garrick claims that he and Elam were the sons of Tain. Star Trek DS9 in Purgatory Shadow explains what this means. So we're going to get to that, whenever we get to this episode.
Now, yeah.
Yeah.
But that he is the son of Tain.
Yes. Garrick's claim. Okay, that was my theory about this episode. Okay, what if Garrick is not actually Elam? that like, okay, what if there were two Garricks or he had a twin brother, right? And the like when he was telling that story and he was like, Elam was my friend, and what if he was actually telling the truth and he's not actually the Elam, he's like the twin brother of some other name, and he took that Elam name, and you know what I mean? Like, what if it was like that? Kind of like John Hammond Mad Men, where he took the identity of his twin brother or something. I don't know.
I don't know. That's like, yeah, like what if Elvis didn't really die and then he switched with a twin brother he never knew? Like, I don't know.
Well,
that'd be interesting.
Elvis did have a twin brother. He died at birth.
It's like the plot of Bubba Hotep, right?
Okay. Okay. So Garrick's claim that the station is too cold is consistent with what was established in the pilot episode, Emissary. The station was too warm for humans because the temperature had been set by its recently departed Cardassian inhabitants. His claim that the lights are too bright is consistent with flashbacks to the Turok Nora era, as in Necessary Evil, which showed dim blue lighting. I always wondered that. It was, and that makes sense. That's why whenever they show back then, they just turn the lights down, and then it gives a nice effect. It looks like it's back in time. Plus, the Cardassians like the dark, you know, like they don't like.
So, like we see Cardassia, but it's always shown to be bright on Cardassia. So that's why I was a bit confused that they like it so dim.
Not in season 7. Like when they're there at the end, it just looks like this dark, dingy, rainy place. You know, but you know. It looks like Berlin at the end of World War II. That's what it looks like.
But we're led to believe that so the Cardassians are kind of lizard-like, and so they like heat more, right? But the Bajorans are like humans, like they like the same kind of temperatures we do.
Right, but why wouldn't they like light? If they're lizards.
Yeah, that's a little bit inconsistent, but that's how they are. They like it dark and hot. They would.
Okay, so guys. Don't know if you caught this, but this is a really cool fun fact. Towards the end of this episode, at 41 minutes and 49 seconds to 41 minutes and 57 seconds, you can go timestamp that. After Bashir returns from meeting Tain on Cardassia Prime, a Jem'Hadar walks onto the promenade from a docking bay. This is the first time a Jem'Hadar is seen in the series. He is not in their military outfit and just looks like a common visitor to the station.
I didn't pick up on that.
So they just...
That's crazy.
The spy?
Yeah, I think they were probably just testing the makeup out, you know.
Probably.
And you know, just said, hey, go walk in on the shot and just see what it looks like on camera and see what it looks like in the shot. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, that's probably what they did. You know,
because we know they'll be introduced in like 2 episodes from now.
Yeah.
Okay. Benjamin Sisko, Kira Nerys, Jadzia Dax, and Miles O'Brien appear in only one scene each. Sisko and Kira's appearance are very brief, with both actors only having a few lines. Jake Sisko does not appear. Jake hasn't been on the show in a while, guys. I mean, did he?
Yeah, we go long stretches without Jake, and then he's back.
I'm guessing that's like when he's probably got to go to school, and then
they always say he's main cast, but is Jake Sisko more main? Like I know he's officially main cast, but like it feels like Garrick's more a main cast member.
Jake Sisko's on less episodes than Morn.
Yeah. Like there's Jake Sisko is a strong recurring character, I guess, but he's really an extension to me of the Ben Sisko character.
Like, he's in it more as he gets older.
When he gets older,
when he becomes the journalist.
Probably when he's old enough that there's less rules surrounding how much he can work and
true. Yeah, he had to get over that school thing, but I was okay. We didn't need Jake, but I also was like, we don't even need the O'Brien scene tonight.
Okay, well, Dave, should Aaron Eisenberg be in the main cast?
I think later on, yeah, like not at this point.
But he never is, right?
No,
right,
no.
And he's
neither's Rom.
But Nog is in 10 more episodes than Garrick. And 11 more episodes than Rom.
What about Chase Masterson as Lita? Or there's a number of these characters who are never officially on the show.
The one that has the most episodes that's not in the main cast is Nog.
Yeah.
Really?
Does he have more episodes than Jake?
Jake gets credit for all 173 episodes.
How many episodes he's actually in?
I don't know. Like you'd have to look at it somewhere else.
But I would reason that there's a good chance that Nog is in as many, if not more, episodes than Jake.
Yeah, early seasons, Nog is in pretty much every episode that Jake is in some way, because they're friends. But then in later episodes, I don't know that Jake is in all the episodes that Nog is in.
Think
No,
so.
no.
I'm going to see if I can get that count.
So, with 93 appearances, Morn appeared in more episodes of Deep Space Nine than Jake Sisko, a regular cast member with only 71 appearances.
Okay, so he had more than Nog or
Okay,
Garrick.
so Jake Sisko only appears in 71 of 173
Yeah,
episodes.
but that's still double Garrick.
That means that there are 170
It's
wait.
100 episodes he's not in.
100 episodes that he's not in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to say that Garrick should be in the main cast then too, I don't really see how that works.
I think by season 4 he is in the main cast in all but name.
You could say the guy who plays Martok is too, and you could say a bunch of guys,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And Golden Cot, especially Golden Cot. How's Golden Cot not in the main cast, Dave?
Golden Cot. You can even make an argument for Kai Wynn. Or, so it's like there's a number of them that will, but we're on this because Jake Sisko always appears in like the main credits, yet is barely on this show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Why can't he be a guest star like a Keiko? I don't understand why he's always in the main credits.
Yeah,
Because
it's a good question. And I think you know why? I think Avery Brooks. I think Avery Brooks wanted Cyril Lofton to be on the show with him and wanted him not to be written out. And probably the best way to do that was to make sure he was on the main cast.
Yep. That was probably a condition.
Okay, so one sec. Going to get to our last few fun facts here. Oh, whoops. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot that they have. This Star Trek DS9 has the best ensemble cast of all of them, of all the Star Trek shows. They have the best actors, I think. Come
Best
in and
company?
out of, yeah, best ensemble cast of for sure, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's up there. I'd say up there with Next Gen. I think Next Gen Deep Space Nine can go toe for toe.
Mm-hmm.
Next Gen has a really strong like main cast, but like their guest stars are good, but
not as plentiful maybe as Deep Space Nine, but it's
There's
not.
as many characters.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
it's harder for them because they're actually flying.
They're
through
actually
space.
on a ship and
They're
they're part of a
moving
crew,
around,
and they're
so they can. Unless you're living on the ship, you won't.
So Ashley,
hard to compare because they're vastly different shows.
yeah. So Ashley, with you mentioned earlier about the book that Andrew Robinson wrote. So the war between the Klingons and Cardassians in Garrick's novel foreshadows the events of season 4's Klingon-Cardassian War. This was not intentional, and was in fact included as a ridiculous premise to show what Garrick thought of Bashir's literary taste, as the plan for the Klingon-Cardassian War was not conceived of until later.
Oh wow!
I see, and I wondered when we were watching that because I even said to Kevin, "That's some foreshadowing."
But it was. But it was.
It wasn't, but it was. That's the whole thing. It's retroactive foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And that's it for Fun Facts with Jeff. FF with Jay.
Okay, well, thank you, Jeff. All right, well, let's get to rating this episode. We are, of course, missing our colleague Jaemeel this week, who is battling with the virus that the world is all over.
He's the guy that needs Bashir right now.
Yeah, so we're all thinking about you, Jaemeel, and hope you're back soon and fully recovered, and your whole family as well. But we march on with The Wire. Kevin, do you want to get us started here?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go 8.5 for this one.
Okay, Ashley.
9.4.
Okay, and Jeff.
We're gonna do 8.9 on this one. It's not quite a 9, but it's right there.
Okay, I'm gonna go about a 9.3. 6. So,
Obviously a good episode. I'm still the lowest at 8.5.
well, you went first too. If you wanted to go.
No.
So that's a 9.1 among the four of us. This is an 8.3 on IMDb, which is well above their average for DS9 episodes, and an 8.7. So this is a top tier episode across all metrics. Well above all of the averages. Gotta remember, like right now, we are averaging a 6.2 for this whole show, like to this point. Including episodes like tonight, which are 9s. So there are some good episodes, but they are not overall. The average has been sort of, okay, not bad. Bad.
It's weird.
I think Dave's
That, I guess that's
Dave's freezing. I thought it was me, but no, not me. It's Dave.
no.
Okay, so I guess we'll continue on to the plugging of the shows while Dave isn't here, because that's why it'll just drive him nuts that we'll be right in the middle of it. Okay. Tomorrow we have the TED Trek. Forget what episode we are watching, but it is something from the original series. I promise it will be interesting. We're gonna give it a watch. We're gonna watch a crazy show from 50 years ago. Then Dave's doing some sort of stupid thing over about Discovery. Oh, with you, Kevin. Kevin, you're on it.
Thursday, yes. Thursday we're doing.
Oh, you poor soul.
The entire season, like a
recap of
the season of season 3.
Did you watch it?
I've gotten through 10 episodes so far.
Yeah. Was it good?
It's far better than the first 2 seasons.
Well, that's good. At least, all right. Well, that's good, because that's what we're talking about these shows. Is it Star Trek enough for you? That's my problem with these new shows. They're not Star Trek enough for me.
Your analysis of it was spot on. It's not. It's not anything like these other shows. You kind of have to get over that it's not that type of show. It's based on Star Trek, but it's a show more like they make today.
It's like if the way making Mandalorian or whatever, they're just like, all right, we're gonna do a new crazy action spin on this, I think Star Trek fans and like Star Wars fans, I think, and just a fan of anything when it's nostalgic like that, and you spend a lot of time watching it, to change it, so drastically. Like, and Dave makes the point that TNG changed so drastically from TOS, but I do feel like they've lost the soul of the essence that Roddenberry, I think.
They're trying to get back in season 3. They're trying to get it back. It's not quite landing, but it's fine.
And I think we got our second crack coming up at Star Trek Radio Theater. I think that's coming up on Saturday.
Friday.
Oh, it's Friday now. So on Friday we got the Star Trek Radio Theater coming up. We're doing the was it A Mirror Darkly, I believe it's called. I'm playing the Phantom of the Tucker.
I don't know, the engine room.
Dave's playing every character that isn't in the crew. Except Bot. Bot's played some crazy looking. Who's the grizzled man that shoots friggin' the Vulcan? Mott gets to play that dude. Dave?
What?
Is Dave still there?
There.
Is it frozen?
I think
I
so.
guess, yeah.
Oh, Dave's internet's going to hell. And he's playing. So Dave's playing the Vulcan captain that will get shot by Mott, the grizzled man. That's a great scene. Oh, that'll be fun. That'll be a lot of fun. Jane's probably got the meatiest role. She gets to play Hoshi Sato.
You there?
Yeah, that'll be.
Yeah, that's a good
There's some good roles in there. Kevin, do you ever get Malcolm Reed and Charles Tucker mixed up?
All the time.
Okay, I'm like, why did they cast two guys that look so kind of similar? Yes, one's British and one's from the South, but they look very similar. You know,
Yeah.
give a guy a goatee, something. Like the other shows made a point, I feel like, to make sure all their characters looked very different from each other. Like, you know, immediately when you see Kira, you're not mistaking that it's Dax. One, because that's why she wears the Bajoran uniform, I think, more than anything, is to give her that distinct, okay, we know it's Kira coming in the screen, or you know.
With Deanna Troy and Beverly Crusher too.
Yeah, I agree. Or any character. Worf, you know, especially when they turn him into the yellow. And then he comes into his nine, he's wearing the red, you know, like I yeah, for sure. They definitely made a point to make all the characters kind of have a individual look. But on Enterprise, there's like 3 white dudes with brown hair. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, you know, like
Yeah.
you can only have one dude with brown hair. Riker is the TNG guy. I mean, you know, like that's it.
Well, I guess you can say that original series has that too, because they got a lot of white guys with brown hair.
They do. That's the 60s, though.
It's the 60s. It's the 60s. So.
And one's a Vulcan, one's Scottish, and really Scottish, and
one's Russian,
and one's really Southern.
And
you know,
American.
So they're all distinct enough, I guess. Yes, but they all are white dudes with brown hair, though. It's true. Okay, Dave. Well, I've basically pitched everything, so I think we can pretty much.
I think we're good. All right.
What episode are we doing tomorrow for the TED Truck, though? Do you remember?
Oh, we're doing what are little girls made of?
Oh, okay. What are little girls made of? I guess we'll have to find out tomorrow.
It's when Kirk is turned into an android or something, and there's a.
Oh yes, okay. Roger Corby.
Does he have to talk it to death?
There's like a big lurch in there and stuff.
He has to talk. We've only watched 2 computers he's talked to death. We still got 2 more to go.
That's his move with computers.
Yeah.
People he has sex with. Computers, he talks them to death.
Yes. He's a simple man, Kirk.
That's all he does.
He's very clear cut. He knows what he wants.
Okay,
go. Yeah, with that, I think we're good here for Tuesdays 9 to 9ish. For all of us here at Live Long and Podcast.